now we cross over to our Young for global insight and an in-depth look at important developments in world affairs.
Thanks very much, Morgan. It is indeed time for Global Insight, where we speak to experts from around the world on issues making headlines. Now, Ukrainians continue to put up a strong fight against the Russian invasion as the war intensifies, with thousands of civilians taking up arms to defend the capital. Battles have broken out in Ukraine's second-largest city of Kharkiv, and with Russian troops closing in on Kiev, the situation continues to escalate. On Sunday, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered Moscow's nuclear forces to be on high alert, further raising the stakes. We discuss the latest developments today, and joining us is Pavel PODVIG, Senior Researcher at the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research. It's very nice to see you again, Dr. PODVIG, despite the circumstances that we're in. But welcome to the show again. And well, as we can all see, the very discouraging scenes, the war ongoing in Ukraine. Well, Ukrainians are putting up a very strong fight, and of course, Western countries have been sending over weapons to aid defense. For now, what kind of weapons are Ukrainians using to take out Russia's helicopters and tanks, and also, are they enough?
Well, as far as I can tell, most of the weapons, or all of the weapons that are supplied by the West, are so-called defensive weapons. So these are anti-tank missiles, anti-aircraft missiles, and things like that. Ukraine also has some uncrewed aerial vehicles, Turkish ones that apparently have been used as well. And it appears that these weapon supply actually do help Ukraine to hold the Russian forces back.
And well, perhaps Mr. Putin was hoping for a quick victory, but Russia's invasion force, though, it's being slowed and rather frustrated by Ukraine's very strong resistance. And of course, the Russian army's logistics forces, they're not exactly designed for large-scale ground offensives that are far from their railroads. And, well, they would continue to keep needing replenishment of supplies. Do you think that Ukraine could perhaps exploit these kind of logistical challenges for the Russians to its advantage?
Probably. It's hard for me to tell, because I'm not really an expert in conventional operations of this kind. Quite frankly, to me, this whole operation is a bit of a mystery, because it is difficult to imagine what was the theory of victory, if you will, for Moscow. It's if you could look at the map the maps that are published regularly with the advances of Russian forces, you can see that Ukraine is a huge country. It's the biggest country in Europe, if you don't count European Russia. And it's very difficult to imagine the scenario of an operation that would bring the entire Ukraine under some kind of control. So quite frankly, I'm puzzled as to what exactly the Russian military had in mind.
And well, Mr. Putin apparently has ordered Russia's nuclear forces to be on high alert. Do you then see a danger of Moscow actually using its nuclear weapons and really escalating what is now a conventional war to a nuclear war? And should such an attack happen, do you think, well, is there any way to deflect it?
Yes, we know that there was the announcement today that the Russian forces implement a certain kind of a mode of combat duty that is a bit closer to combat. Although it's not really the raising the level of alert, because most of the forces are already on high alert. It's just preparing the command and control system for kind of a worse scenario, and making sure that the United States is not tempted to strike on Russian forces, preserving the retaliatory capability of the Russian forces. So I think we could rule out the possibility of Russia's using nuclear forces in Ukraine for a variety of reasons. One of which is that would be the main reason it would be unthinkable. It should be unthinkable. But if you look at the kind of a practical military side of things, it would be totally useless because nuclear weapons are not actually good for military operations. Nuclear weapons are built to kill a lot of people, and that's what they can do. But in terms of fighting the war of the kind that Russia is fighting in Ukraine, they are really not useful at all.
And while there are now fears being expressed that, Russia may perhaps attack a NATO member country, do you actually see this happening? Could it actually escalate to that point?
Well, as in any military conflict, and it's a very uncertain situation, and it's a crisis situation, there is also always a danger of what is called an inadvertent escalation. So things are happening, and sometimes things go the way that nobody could predict. And if you look at this war, there are many ways for the situation to escalate and to get the NATO states involved. For example, in the very first address, when President Putin announced the beginning of the invasion, he actually made it clear, or tried to make it clear, that if those who would try to interfere with Russian efforts from the outside would be met with the immediate response, and the response would bring the consequences which they've never seen in their history, which was, in my view, very direct reference to nuclear weapons. But that was in response to an attempt to interfere. So unless the Western states, NATO, do not interfere with the operation, Russia will not have the cause to react. And the United States and NATO were very careful to underline every time that they are not going to get direct military involvement in the conflict. At the same time, it may not be their decision to make. It would be President Putin and the Kremlin leadership who would decide what amounts to interference. Whether the supply of weapons actually would be the line that Moscow would decide that this is the line that should not be crossed. We don't know, and to some extent, even I think Moscow doesn't know at this point. So I think there is a danger of escalation. There is a danger of things going in unpredictable ways, and I'll be honest. The fact that nuclear weapons are kind of waved around there does make me nervous, because I think, again, nuclear weapons should not be anywhere close to this conflict.
And well, what would NATO do? How would it respond if Russia did happen to attack one of its member countries? Would it then, just escalate into a full-scale World War III?
Well, technically, and NATO again made it very strong statements to that effect, that NATO has the obligation to defend its members if they are attacked. So I would assume that if something like that happens, then NATO would have to react, and there are many factors here. And the credibility of the alliance is very important for NATO members. I think this, again, it's hard to say exactly what would happen, because things, again, could go in unpredictable ways. And there is a danger of people overreacting to certain events, but I think that's the main danger today.
And well, the UK government is apparently preparing for a situation where Russia takes over Ukraine and the Zelensky administration becomes a government in exile. Do you think that is the situation that we're headed towards?
It's hard to tell. I don't think that things will get to that point. I do hope that the situation will resolve before that, and so I'm not sure that this is really the kind of scenario that we should think about. If only because there is, if you take like a cold look at this situation, I think it is understood that the Western Ukraine would be off limits for any Russian forces, and there are many places in Ukraine where the government could relocate if, God forbid, Kiev will be taken over.
And well, it seems that it's really hard to understand what President Putin's intentions really are, and it's particularly baffling because it seems that even Russians don't want this war and they're protesting against it on the streets. So why do you think Putin is pressing on with this?
That's a very good question. And quite frankly, I don't think that many people know the answer. I must say that I agree, and what I see from comments from my colleagues from various conversations, and I see that this war has almost no support in Russian society. Some people protest actively, as you can see, and it's totally non-organized. So there is no leadership at this protest. But people just come out because they feel that this is definitely not the kind of war that they want to be associated with. And again, I talked to many of my friends and colleagues, and the sense, the deep sense is that it's really tough to be associated with this war, being Russian these days. And I'm glad to see that many of people, and I would say very much all people whom I respect as professionals, as friends, they definitely do not support this war.
And lastly, Dr. Pavel, well, for now, Western countries are ramping up sanctions on the Kremlin. So selected Russian banks, they're going to be expelled from SWIFT, the international banking system, transaction system. So that would really be the first step of in this disconnecting Russia from the international financial system. And well, countries, they haven't gone so far as to enforce a travel ban on Mr. Putin yet, but well, all of these things considered, what impact do you think these measures would have? And do you think they'll actually make a difference on what Mr. Putin chooses to do or not to do?
Probably not immediately, and because I think quite frankly, I think many people are surprised by the extent of the sanctions that are being put together. And there are some of them have the potential to hit Russian economy really hard and Russian people. But at the same time, it was clear before the war started that the sanctions, the pressure would be very serious, and still it didn't stop the war. And again, as I said, very much all my colleagues in Russia, or those who know Russia well, and myself included, they did not believe to the very end that this invasion will start, because it really, if you compare the potential costs of this operation with the benefits, which are very much non-existent, it's just very simple calculation, even just from the pragmatic point of view. But nevertheless, it did start, and I'm afraid that that was a result of very closed and very non-transparent and very isolated political system in Russia.
That was Pavel PODVIG, Senior Researcher of the United Nations Institute for Disarmament Research. Thank you very much, Doctor, for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.